They say hindsight's 20/20. But there's something cruel about how clear things become only after the damage is done. It was a Sunday in late April. One of those deceptively perfect Austin mornings. Warm enough to sit outside, breezy enough to keep your skin from sticking to itself. Laura had organized a private brunch for a handful of our mutual friends. Nothing fancy, she insisted. Just a little catch-up, low-stakes social time, as she called it. I didn't want to go. I almost told her to count me out, but she nudged me with a playful elbow and that half-smile she used when she wanted something. That was her gift. She could steer a situation without making it feel like she was steering it at all. We arrived a few minutes late. Laura's idea, of course. "It's rude to be the first one there," she said as she adjusted her sunglasses in the car mirror for the 5th time. She was wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. Navy blue, cut just above the knee. Classy, but the kind of classy designed to draw attention without screaming for it. Her hair was curled. Professionally, I'd bet. And she had on that subtle but expensive perfume I usually only noticed when we were headed to one of her work galas. I asked who was coming. "Just the usual," she said. "Marcy, Becca, Tiff, probably Ashley. Maybe Logan too, if he gets out of his shift." She didn't mention anyone I didn't already know, and I didn't have a reason to push it. At least not yet. The restaurant was this boutique place near Zilker. All wood paneling, lavender lattes, and framed black and white photos of people no one could name. They sat us on the back patio, half shaded by some tree I could never identify, even though I'd asked her about it at least twice before on other dates here. Everyone was already there when we arrived, and as usual, Laura lit up the space like a goddamn sparkler. She moved through people with that confident, weightless charisma she reserved for public life. The kind that pulled people in even when they didn't know why. I hung back. I always did at these things. I wasn't the charming one. I was the listener, the detail catcher, the guy who remembered whose sister had cancer or who was switching jobs next month. Nobody notices the quiet one until something breaks. About halfway through the meal, right after the second round of mimosas, Laura decided to share a photo. She pulled out her phone and tilted it toward the center of the table with a bright, "Okay. Wait. This is from last Friday. You have to see what Becca wore." Everyone leaned in. I did too, more out of habit than curiosity. It was a group photo, Laura and her usual crew, seated at a waterfront restaurant I didn't recognize, probably somewhere on the east side. They were all smiles, heads tilted together, soft lighting, drinks in hand. The kind of photo you post once and revisit often. But as I scanned the image, something caught my eye. Something in the window. Reflections. Always the reflections. I leaned closer. It was subtle, almost invisible if you weren't looking. In the glass behind Laura's shoulder, the window of the restaurant caught a sliver of the inside from a reverse angle. And there he was. A man. Barely there. But once you saw him, it was unmistakable. Short-sleeved button-down shirt, close-cut beard, square shoulders. Sitting at the edge of the booth. One arm propped lazily along the backrest, angled toward Laura like they were mid-conversation. Not a waiter. Waiters don't sit down. And he wasn't just in the sh*T. He was part of it. Present. Engaged. Before I could speak, Marcy let out a little giggle. Laura? Who's the guy in the window?" she said, pointing at the screen like she discovered a hidden Mickey at Disneyland. Everyone laughed. A light, airy, alcohol-laced sound that filled the silence just enough to swallow the question. Laura was quick. "Oh my God," she said through a laugh, tapping the screen. That's just some rando walking by. Ryan, don't start with your conspiracy theories." I hadn't said a word yet. She tossed the phone back into her purse with theatrical casualness, then shifted gears like a seasoned actress redirecting a scene. "Anyway, how's your new place? Becca? You finally get that weird plumbing thing figured out." Everyone followed the bait. Everyone but me. I sat there, smiling politely, the warmth drained from my face. My mouth still tasted like smoked salmon and shame. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask for clarification. I didn't call her out or press her for the truth. But in that moment, something in me flickered and then collapsed. It was a small collapse, like the sound a curtain makes when it drops behind the stage. Quiet, but irreversible. Because I knew. I'd known for a while. I just never had to face it so plainly before. This wasn't the first time she'd redirected attention. It wasn't the first time she'd made a subtle jab at me in front of people, branding me as suspicious or controlling in that faux playful tone women sometimes use when they're soft-launching their exit strategy. I used to brush it off. I'd tell myself she was just trying to be funny, that I was overthinking it. But overthinking has a funny way of becoming foresight when enough puzzle pieces finally land in place. And that photo? That was the final piece. I didn't taste the rest of my drink. I didn't remember the rest of the brunch. I don't know what conversations happened or who paid the bill or how long we stayed. Everything blurred. All I could hear was the high-pitched ringing of realization. The kind that comes when your brain starts doing that brutal math where she said she was versus where she actually was, what she wore versus what she told you, what she shared versus what she made sure to hide. I drove us home without speaking. She hummed along to some playlists she'd made the week before. Songs we used to share. It didn't matter anymore. She thought she had controlled the moment. She thought the laughter, the performance, the perfect timing of the question, and the perfect dodge had worked. But what she didn't see, what none of them saw, was that something had shifted. I wasn't in denial anymore. I wasn't going to gaslight myself on her behalf. Something inside me had gone silent. And in that silence, I finally heard the truth. After the brunch, something in me didn't just shift, it cracked. It's strange how a single moment, barely lasting a few seconds, can detonate everything you've spent years trying to build. That photo, just a sliver of glass, a man's blurry silhouette, and Laura's too quick laughter, was the match. And in the days that followed, the fire spread quietly. It started with memory. Not anger. Not confrontation. Just memory. I'd be brushing my teeth and suddenly I'd remember a night 3 months ago, Laura claiming she had a seminar in San Antonio. A Women in Tech conference or something. She even brought home a name badge, carefully creased and worn like she'd actually worn it. I remember asking her how it went. She shrugged and said it was mostly boring panels, then disappeared into the bedroom to unpack. But her car's GPS, something I'd casually checked the next day when I used her car to pick up a takeout order, had recent destinations saved. One of them wasn't San Antonio. It was a pin dropped on a coastal villa in Port Aransas, 3 hours in the opposite direction. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Maybe she'd clicked it by accident. Maybe she was dreaming up a vacation. Maybe. But the photo changed how all those maybe sat with me. Then came the clothes. Laura had always been stylish, but lately boxes had started arriving from brands I'd never heard of. Labels with names like Cézanne, Reformation, and Rouge French, sleek, the kind of chic that whispers instead of shouts. She never wore them around me. I'd see the tags still on the back of the closet rack or catch a glimpse of her trying something on before she realized I was in the room. Trying it for a friend, she'd say with a laugh. Becca wanted to know if it fits true to size. Another lie I swallowed like aspirin, bitter but necessary. I started noticing other things too. Little cues I used to write off as quirks or just Laura being Laura. She started taking her calls outside. Or in the bathroom with the door locked. Just a quick sync with my team, she'd shout through the door, followed by fake casual laughter. Who laughs on a video call in the bathroom? She used to take work calls with me right in the room. She didn't mind if I overheard before. She started using Face ID more. Changed her lock screen password. Logged out of our shared Spotify, said it kept playing the wrong stuff at work. I noticed her phone didn't pop up on our Wi-Fi network anymore either. It was like she was carefully erasing fingerprints I hadn't even tried to find. And then there were the flowers. At first, I thought they were from clients. One bouquet arrived on a Tuesday in March, orange tulips and purple lilies, tastefully arranged, with no card. I asked her about them. Oh, from the department, she said, for closing the UX redesign sprint. But when I bumped into her team's project manager a week later at a mutual friend's birthday party, I mentioned it. Flowers? We don't do stuff like that, he said. Our budget's tight, we can barely afford bagels at stand-ups. More doubt. More pieces shifting. There were nights when she came home at 10:30, claiming back-to-back meetings followed by post-launch drinks with the team. She'd smell faintly of gin and a citrus cologne I didn't wear. And her mood would be strange, jumpy, but distant. Almost rehearsed. The worst part wasn't even the behavior. It was how I'd trained myself not to see it. There's a kind of survival in denial, I guess. It lets you cling to a version of the story where everything's still fixable. Where maybe you're the paranoid one. Where maybe love still counts for something. But now the illusion was gone. I started rewatching the highlight reel of our past year like a forensic analyst, frame by frame. Her mood swings. The way she went from affectionate to cold without warning. The way she used space like a shield, needing it more often, asking for weekends alone with vague explanations. I just need to recharge, she'd say, already halfway out the door. There was that one night I made dinner, her favorite, roast chicken with rosemary potatoes, and she said she wasn't hungry. 15 minutes later, I heard her Uber app ding in the hallway. Just meeting Becca for a quick drink. I'll be back soon, she said, avoiding eye contact. She came home 3 hours later, eyes glassy, smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. I knew her signature scent by heart, white amber and vetiver. This one was muskier, more masculine. And what about our trip to Colorado? The one I booked as a last-ditch effort to reconnect. She spent half the weekend on her laptop claiming it was a quarterly deliverable. I found out later, through a colleague she didn't know I knew, that her team had finished the deliverable 2 weeks before. She hadn't been working. She'd just chosen not to be with me. My mind spiraled. Every conversation became suspect. Every text she sent now had invisible ink beneath it. I'd read long day, be home soon, and imagine someone else in the car beside her, holding her hand as she typed it. I'd read love you, babe, and wonder if it was reflex or strategy. I started to feel like I was living with a stranger wearing my wife's skin. The scariest part? I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. There's something humiliating about suspecting betrayal before you can prove it. You don't want to be the guy airing dirty laundry only to realize it was just a shadow on the fabric. You don't want to ask questions you're not ready to hear the answers to. So I watched. I listened. I documented in my head and sometimes in my phone's notes app. April 11th, she said she was at Becca's, but no check-ins on Instagram from either of them. April 17th, call at midnight. Just helping Logan with a pitch deck. I texted Logan. No reply. April 22nd, new lingerie tag in the trash. I hadn't seen her wear anything new in months. It built quietly like a storm gathering just over the horizon. I didn't know when it would break, but I knew it was coming. Because once the spell breaks, you can't unsee the cracks. And I was done pretending they weren't there. There's a strange kind of calm that comes after your suspicions start stacking into facts. It's not relief. Not even anger. Just a numb, icy precision that settles in your chest and tells you, okay, now we stop waiting. Now it's time to act. The final threads started unraveling on a Thursday. Laura had mentioned a networking trip in Fredericksburg, a women's tech retreat hosted at a wine country inn. She had said it was part of a mentorship program, something about rising female leaders. She even showed me a brochure she'd printed out. I'll admit she played it well. There were fake Zoom invites, an email chain I saw her scrolling through by accident, and a suitcase neatly packed with professional casual wear. I almost believed her. Almost. But the GPS trail told a different story. I'd quietly installed a tracking app on the old iPad we used for movies during travel, the one she sometimes took with her because it was synced to our work accounts. She forgot to log out. Or maybe she didn't think I'd ever check. The iPad pinged from a small boutique hotel in Wimberley. Not Fredericksburg. Not a vineyard. Just a rustic place with 5 rooms, no conference spaces, and no mention of hosting events. I looked it up. Candlelit porches. Couples packages. Perfect for a quiet weekend escape. I called in sick the next morning. Packed light, 1 bag, a spare shirt, sunglasses. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not because I had something to hide, but because this wasn't for anyone else. I needed to see it for myself. I needed the kind of proof no one could twist or talk me out of. Especially me. The drive to Wimberley was quiet. Texas Hill Country rolled by in warm shades of green and gold, but I barely saw it. My thoughts were loud. Loud enough to drown everything else out. What would I say if I saw her? Would I confront her right then and there? Would I play dumb? Would I even be able to stand? When I pulled into the gravel parking lot of the hotel, my hands were steady. That surprised me. I checked in under a different last name. Said I was a photographer scouting the area. The clerk, a kid in his 20s with chipped nail polish and a disinterested stare, didn't ask any questions. I got a room on the 2nd floor. 1 floor above hers. How did I know? Because I watched her arrive. Around 5:20 p.m., a silver rideshare SUV pulled up. She stepped out in sunglasses, wearing a soft linen dress I'd never seen before. Her hair was down, loose, the way she wore it on weekends. Not the way she wore it at professional retreats. She laughed as she turned toward the passenger side, reaching for a hand that extended to her. And there he was. Same man from the restaurant window reflection. I could see him more clearly now, tall, sandy hair, button-down rolled to the elbows. His hand hovered low on her back as they walked toward the entrance, giggling like they were stealing time from the world. They didn't see me. I stayed in the car, windows down just enough to breathe. They kissed at the door. Not a goodbye kiss. Not a polite peck. The kind of kiss that doesn't ask for permission. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty gravel where their car had been, the lobby door swinging slowly shut behind them. I wanted to feel rage. Or heartbreak. Or even disbelief. But I didn't feel anything. Not yet. That night, I checked into my room and kept the lights off. My window faced theirs, diagonal across the small courtyard. I could see the faint outlines of movement behind their drawn curtains. At one point, I thought I saw her silhouette pass by, arm brushing his. She stopped in front of the window and laughed at something. Then she pulled the curtain tighter. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I wandered to the front desk and made small talk with the clerk. I do a lot of travel content, I said casually. Might do a write-up on places with good hospitality stories. You ever have any influencers stay here? The clerk laughed. All kinds. Honeymooners, retreat folks, even a few off-the-record hookups. You'd be surprised. I pressed gently. Actually, that couple that checked in yesterday, room 204, I think. They looked familiar. You know if they come here often? The kid raised an eyebrow. Them? Oh yeah, this is like their spot. She books under different names sometimes, but he always tips in cash. Real careful. Nice though. Quiet. I nodded, trying to seem neutral. You guys have security cameras? He pointed to the hallway monitor behind the desk. Only in the public areas. Want a copy? He was joking. I didn't laugh. Later that afternoon, I slipped him $200 and asked if I could get a screenshot for a fake video project I was working on. He didn't ask questions. By evening, I had the footage. Laura and the guy walking hand in hand to the vending area at midnight. Laughing. Sharing a drink. She was barefoot. He kissed her neck. Then they walked back toward the room, swaying, arms tangled. Time-stamped. Dated. Clear. She hadn't been at a retreat. She hadn't been working late. She hadn't been anywhere near Fredericksburg. Everything I feared was true. No, worse than true. Confirmed, documented, repeatable. I drove home that night. Didn't call her. Didn't message. Just sat in silence with the video file on a thumb drive. The grainy hallway footage burned into my brain. It's strange how betrayal looks so ordinary on camera. Just two people in love walking down a hallway. If you didn't know the context, it could almost be sweet. But context is everything. She was my wife. And that was not me holding her hand. There's a point where heartbreak stops being loud. It stops screaming and begging for answers. It stops replaying what-ifs or replaying memories like a highlight reel from a life that never existed. Instead, it goes quiet, surgical. Focused. That's the place I landed after Wimberley. I didn't call her. I didn't mention the hotel. I didn't slam doors or accuse her when she got back home on Sunday night. She waltzed in just past 9, looking freshly showered and glowing in that untouchable way people do when they've been somewhere they weren't supposed to be. Trip was good, she said casually, dropping her bag by the door. A lot of networking. I'm exhausted. I watched her walk into the kitchen, humming something soft under her breath. She poured herself a glass of wine, unaware that the moment she lied to my face, something final had clicked in me. I didn't ask questions. Because I wasn't looking for truth anymore. I already had it. Instead, I started collecting. The GPS logs. Screenshot of her location history. The video footage from the hotel burned onto 2 separate USBs, one I kept in a drawer at work, the other in a safe deposit box she didn't know about. I saved her emails. The ones she sent under her professional name. The flotation wasn't always obvious, but in context, with dates and destinations, it was damning. Then there were the receipts. Boutique hotel bookings made with her corporate credit card. Personal calls made during work hours. Names that didn't show up on the company calendar. I even found 2 sets of photos she'd stored in a hidden iCloud folder, selfies from hotel balconies, her legs tangled with someone else's, only his forearm or shoes in the frame. It was all there. She'd hidden just enough to fool someone who wasn't looking. But now I was looking. Closely. Methodically. I didn't confront her. I wasn't interested in watching her spiral into half apologies and ugly crying. I wasn't going to give her that release. Because she didn't deserve catharsis. She deserved consequence. Laura worked in a tightly knit corporate firm, one of those trendy startups with a casual dress code but strict ethics clauses buried in their contracts. They were progressive but protective of their reputation. She had just been promoted to a senior product strategist role, and from what I gathered in bits of overheard phone calls, she was positioned for something even bigger, a regional leadership seat on the horizon. All I had to do was send a box. An anonymous one. Inside, a neat collection of printouts, a polite letter to the company's compliance department outlining potential ethics concerns, and a USB marked only with the date ranges. I didn't include my name. I didn't need to. I mailed it from an out-of-town post office 2 days later. She didn't notice anything at first. The days that followed were normal. Or whatever normal meant to us now. We coexisted like polite roommates. We exchanged comments about dinner. She still kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work. I let her. Then Thursday came. That's when the tremors started. She got home late, really late, and walked in with a look I hadn't seen before. Not guilt. Not sadness. Confusion. They canceled my San Jose trip, she said, pulling her earrings off too quickly. Something about team realignments. And Grace, my assistant, just quit out of nowhere. She waited for a reaction. I gave her none. Don't you think that's weird? She asked, eyes narrowing. I shrugged. I'm not really sure how things work over there. She studied me for a second longer than necessary, then walked off. The next day, she didn't go into the office. I overheard a tense phone call from the guest room, her voice sharp, defensive. When she came out, she looked pale, almost translucent. There, auditing some travel logs. Someone filed a concern. About what? She flinched. Just slightly. I don't know. They wouldn't say. 2 days later, she was removed from the flagship project she'd been leading for 6 months. No public reason. Just a quiet reassignment to strategy support. Her calendar, once packed with key meetings and leadership syncs, was now full of internal check-ins and admin holds. I didn't say a word. I just kept making coffee in the mornings, asking if she needed anything from the store, watching the scaffolding of her professional life loosen one bolt at a time. Then, the night I knew it had really hit her, she came home early. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She set her bag down and walked straight to the couch. They're treating me like a liability, she said, not looking at me. Like I'm hiding something. I didn't look up from the book in my hand. Are you? Her mouth opened, then closed. She blinked as if she hadn't expected the question from me. Not like that. Not so neutral. I don't know what's going on, she said weakly. I wanted to tell her the truth. I wanted to say I knew exactly what was going on. That I was the one pulling the pins from the grenades she'd planted. But instead I just nodded. Well, I said calmly, maybe it'll blow over. It wouldn't. And she was starting to realize that. She started having trouble sleeping. I could hear her rustling in the guest room, pacing the hallway late at night. Her texts got shorter. Her phone stayed face down even in private. She took calls outside more often, but now her voice had changed. No more light giggles. Just clipped, stressed tones. One morning, I walked into the kitchen and saw her hunched over her laptop, typing rapidly. When she noticed me, she snapped it shut like a kid hiding a secret game. You're up early, she said. Couldn't sleep, I replied. Yeah, me either. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The truth was, this wasn't even the end. It was the middle, the part where denial turns into dread. Where her carefully constructed world starts making strange noises in the walls. Where she begins to understand that not all damage is loud. Some of it is soft, strategic, surgical. She never once suspected me. She kept blaming someone at work, maybe a jealous peer, maybe HR. Someone must have it out for me, she told me one night while swirling wine in a glass she hadn't even touched. I think they're threatened. That's what it is. Some of those guys have never liked me. I nodded sympathetically. Maybe, I said. Inside, I felt nothing. Just a clean, calculated stillness. Because this was justice, not revenge. I didn't expose her to embarrass her. I didn't do it for closure. I did it because she broke something inside me and kept smiling like she didn't notice. And now she was finally noticing. The beautiful thing about collapse is that it doesn't happen all at once. It starts slowly, email by email, meeting by meeting, doubt by doubt, until the ground beneath you is gone and you're standing on a trapdoor with no one left to call. She built her house out of lies. I just made sure she couldn't find the exits. It rained the afternoon she came back. Not just a drizzle, but the kind of downpour that makes the whole world feel like it's pressing against the windows. I was home early that day, seated on the living room floor, sorting through boxes I had been meaning to tackle for months, things we'd collected over the years. A photo album from when we still took road trips. A stack of old birthday cards. Receipts from dinners where I thought we were happy. It wasn't sentimental. I was just deciding what I wanted to keep and what belonged to the version of me that didn't exist anymore. That's when I heard the knock. It wasn't timid. Not frantic either. Just steady. Rhythmic. Familiar. I opened the door and found her standing there, soaked to the bone. Hair clinging to her face, makeup smudged like something out of a scene she thought might move me. Her coat was unbuttoned. She hadn't even brought an umbrella. "Hi," she said, voice small. I stepped aside without a word. She walked in like she'd done 100 times before, and for a second it was like muscle memory was dragging us both through a routine our hearts had abandoned. She didn't speak again until she was in the kitchen, rummaging through the drawer where we used to keep extra dish towels. She dried her face, then stood there quietly, eyes scanning the room like it might tell her something. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. I said nothing. She looked around at the clean counters, the missing picture frames, the organized clutter that was once our shared chaos. "You've been cleaning," she said. "It looks different." I nodded once. "Still nothing from me." Then she smiled. It was small. Almost ashamed. But it was there, her ace in the hole. The smile she used to get out of tickets, to charm her way through mistakes. I used to think it was magic. Now it just looked tired. "I made dinner," she said, breaking the silence. I blinked. "What?" "In the car. It's in Tupperware. I stopped at that little Spanish place you used to like. I remembered you always ordered the garlic chicken even though you pretended not to like garlic." I didn't respond. "I thought maybe we could eat together," she said, placing the bag on the counter like it was a peace offering. "Talk. You don't have to say anything now." I needed to do something. I let her set the table. I let her open the wine. She even lit a candle like she was building a replica of a night we might have had before everything splintered. She talked, lightly at first, about work stress, office politics, the absurdity of her current team reassignment. But her voice betrayed her. It cracked in all the wrong places. Then came the pivot. "I've been thinking about us," she said, resting her fork on the edge of the plate. "A lot. I know things got complicated. But I never stopped caring. I lost sight of what mattered. I got distracted." "Distracted?" I repeated, not a question, not an accusation. Just a word left on the table between us. She looked down. "I miss you, Ryan," she said. "Not just this house. Not just the history. You. The way you always knew what to say when I was unraveling. The way you listened." I sipped my wine. She took that as encouragement. "I want to make this right," she said. "I'm in therapy. Just started. I've only had one session, but it felt good. Grounding." I let her keep talking. About the playlists she made me. The old vacation plans we'd never taken. The drawer in her closet that still held the sweatshirt I left in her car that winter we visited her parents. All her tokens. All her bargaining chips. She wore my favorite cardigan. Played one of our songs while clearing the plates. Subtle things. Strategic ones. And I didn't stop her. Because she didn't know. She didn't know that the finances had already been separated. That I'd already closed the joint accounts and redirected the bills. She didn't know I'd changed the emergency contacts, updated my will, rerouted my mail. She didn't know I'd already hired a lawyer. This wasn't reconciliation. This was a slow fade disguised as routine. "I still love you," she said suddenly, like it was a key that might still open something. I nodded almost kindly. "Okay." The word hit her like a slap. She stared at me, searching for the reaction that used to be there. Pain. Anger. Something. Anything. But there was nothing left to dig into. I had already excavated all the grief. What remained was just strategy. I stood, collected our plates, and moved to the sink. "You don't believe me," she said behind me. "Do you?" I paused, water running over the ceramic. "I believe you think you mean it," I said. "But love isn't the same thing as regret." Silence stretched long between us. "You think I'm just trying to fix this because it's falling apart," she said. "No," I replied, drying my hands. "I think you're trying to fix it because it's no longer convenient." That stopped her. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. "I'm not here for convenience," she whispered. "I'm here because I made a mistake. I chose wrong. And I see it now." "No," I said, looking her in the eyes. "You're here because the other thing collapsed and you thought I'd still be standing in the same place." The room grew heavy again. She walked toward me slowly, reaching for my hand. "I don't expect you to forgive me tonight. Or tomorrow. But please, don't shut the door." Too late. The door hadn't slammed shut. It had closed quietly over time. With every lie, every late night, every smirk she gave someone else while I sat home wondering if I was enough. Now she was looking at me like I was the last safe thing left in a world that no longer trusted her. And all I could think was, this is what she offered him too. The stories. The charm. The tears. But I wasn't him. I didn't want what she was offering. Not anymore. I offered her a guest towel and a pillow. You can stay the night if you want, I said. Spare rooms made up. Just tonight, she asked, her voice trembling. Yes, I said. Just tonight. Because what she thought was the start of our healing was just the closing credits to a film I'd already walked out of.